Level 1. Entry. You arrive on a Monday. The badge is temporary. The desk is shared. The coffee is free because it is the cheapest thing in the building and it keeps you at your terminal longer. You are 23 years old and you believe, with the full conviction of someone who has never been corrected by consequence, that you are here because you are intelligent. You graduated near the top. You prepared for every interview. You studied valuation methodologies on weekends while your friends slept. None of that is why you are here. You are here because you are compliant in a way that presents as ambition. You follow instructions at speed. You do not question structure. You interpret obedience as opportunity. These are the traits they selected for. Not during the interview, during the years before it. The system you moved through, the schools that taught you to optimize for approval, the economy that made $140,000 in debt feel like an investment rather than a leash. You sit in orientation and they explain culture. They explain values. You nod. Around you, 40 other faces nod at the same moment. Not one of you notices the synchronization. You have already been formatted. Your job is simple. Populate models, check precedents, turn red lines into black lines. You are a processing layer. But here is what you do not yet understand. You are also being read. Every email you send is a data point. Every question you ask calibrates their model of you, not your competence, your tolerance. How late will you stay? How much ambiguity will you absorb before you push back? Whether you push back at all. Most don't. The rule. You were not hired for what you know. You were hired for what you are willing to accept without asking why. Level 2. Visibility. 14 months in, you receive a lesson that no one delivers explicitly. A peer, sharper than you, more vocal, more certain, presents a contrarian view in a Monday meeting. His analysis is correct. The data supports him. He is rewarded with eye contact from a managing director, a brief nod, what appears to be respect. Within 6 weeks, he is restaffed to a lower priority sector. No confrontation, no documented cause. He simply becomes invisible through assignment. His calendar thins. His access narrows. He leaves by year-end, believing it was his choice. You learn. The room does not punish dissent with force. It punishes dissent with geometry. It simply rearranges itself so that you are no longer in proximity to anything that matters. You begin modulating, not your intelligence, your surface area. You speak less. You listen with more deliberation. You learn to contribute in ways that make your superior feel as though the idea originated with them. This is not submission. It is camouflage, and it works. The rule: visibility is a tax. The more precisely they can see you, the more efficiently they can contain you. Power operates best in peripheral vision. Level 3. Information. By your 3rd year, you understand that information exists in 3 states: public, private, and delayed. Public information is priced. Private information is regulated. But delayed information that is technically available yet structurally obscured by timing, context, or access is where the actual asymmetry lives. You watch a vice president hold a covenant compliance report for 4 days before distributing it to the lending syndicate. Nothing is falsified. Nothing is concealed. The report simply moves slowly through a process designed to create exactly that kind of slowness. In those 4 days, positioning adjusts. Exposure is trimmed. By the time the information arrives, the people receiving it believe they are making decisions. They are confirming decisions already made on their behalf. You build your own quiet archive. Not secrets, sequences. You track the order in which disclosures move. You learn which law firms receive drafts first, which ratings agencies are consulted before their formal engagement. The information is the same. The architecture of its release is where the meaning hides. The rule: what you know matters less than when you know it, and who does not yet know it. Information is a commodity. Its delivery schedule is the instrument. Level 4. Timing. Year 6. You have learned to think in intervals. Not what should be done, but when the doing produces maximum effect with minimum exposure. A recommendation offered Tuesday is ignored. The same recommendation offered the following Thursday, after a market dislocation confirms its logic, is called foresight. Nothing changed but the clock. You watch a portfolio manager delay an allocation shift by 11 days. Not because the analysis was incomplete, because the narrative environment was not yet prepared to receive it. He needed a particular inflation print. Not for validation, for cover. When the shift executes, it appears reactive, prudent, consensus-aligned. It is none of these things. It was decided weeks prior. The timing was not a response to the world. The timing was a costume the decision wore in public. You start constructing your own temporal strategies. When to surface a concern, when to let silence do the work. You learn that urgency is almost always a tool of those with the least leverage. The patient voice sets the tempo. The rule: the same decision, executed at 2 different moments, creates 2 entirely different realities. Timing is not a detail. It is the architecture of plausible deniability. Level 5. Access. A dinner in Zurich. 14 people. No agenda. No name tags. The restaurant is private in a way that does not advertise its privacy. No website, no signage. The kind of place that exists through referral chains so long they function as security clearance. You are here because a senior partner mentioned your name in a context you will never be told about. This is how access works. It is never requested. It is extended, and the extension carries no explanation, only expectation. The man to your left manages infrastructure capital across 3 continents. He asks you about water rights in Southeast Asia. Not market data, political sequencing. Who is likely to privatize? Which minister's position has softened? You answer carefully, not because you are uncertain, because the answer is itself a commitment. If he acts on your framing and it fails, the cost is not financial. It is relational. And at this altitude, relationships are not connections. They are load-bearing structures. You realize the actual decisions were never in the conference rooms. They live in hallways, in the 40-second phone call placed from an airport lounge, in a question asked over a glass that was itself an answer. The rule: access is not about entering a room. It is about being present in the spaces that have no name, no minutes, and no record, where language is careful and outcomes are permanent. Level 6: Dependency. You make yourself essential the way a foundation makes itself essential to a building, not by being visible, but by making your removal structurally unbearable. You hold the institutional memory of 17 client relationships, the nuance, the unspoken sensitivities, the succession dynamics no CRM system captures. Importance is a title. Necessity is a condition. Important people get invited to panels. Necessary people get called before the panel's topic is chosen. You have made yourself a node through which information must pass, and you have done it so quietly that the network does not know it is dependent on you. This is not ambition. This is engineering. The rule: do not become important. Important people can be replaced with other important people. Become necessary. Necessary means the cost of your removal exceeds the cost of your accommodation, indefinitely. Level 7: Narrative. Markets do not move on data. You understand this now with a clarity that would have disturbed you a decade ago. Markets move on consensus fictions, stories that enough capital agrees to believe for long enough that they become indistinguishable from fact. You have watched a sovereign bond market stabilize not because fundamentals improved, but because 3 allocators, on 3 separate calls in 3 separate weeks, were given the same framing by the same advisory chain. A story. A narrative of recovery that had just enough data points to be defensible and just enough ambiguity to be unverifiable. The market didn't discover stability. It was offered stability, and it accepted because instability was more expensive. You now participate in the construction of these narratives, not through press, through positioning, through the careful sequencing of research, the informal alignment of views before they harden into public commentary. You shape the scaffold. The market builds the building and believes the blueprint was its own. The rule: a satisfactory narrative, distributed to enough decision makers before the data is complete, does not describe reality. It becomes reality. Markets are not discovered. They are authored. Level 8: Silence. There are things that must never be written. You know this the way a surgeon knows anatomy, not intellectually, but functionally, through repetition and consequence observed at close range. You watched a career end because of 11 words in an email that, in any other context, would have been banal. But context is not fixed. Context is what an investigator, a journalist, or a regulator decides it is, 3 years later, under different lighting. So you learn the discipline of absence. The most sensitive alignments are conducted in person, in rooms selected for their lack of recording infrastructure, in conversations that are never referenced again. You do not destroy evidence. There is no evidence to destroy. The architecture was designed so that evidence was never created. This is not concealment. It is structural hygiene. Your phone calls are brief. Your emails are procedural. Your actual communication occurs in the spaces between, in what you chose not to write, in the meeting that was never scheduled, in the recommendation that arrived as a question and was understood as a directive. The rule: at a certain depth, power does not speak, it implies. The most consequential sentence in any negotiation is the one that was never uttered aloud, yet somehow everyone in the room heard it. Level 9. Architecture. You are no longer inside the system. You are part of its design. You sit on allocation committees that have no public-facing name. You help determine which capital flows toward which geography, which sector receives oxygen, and which is quietly allowed to compress. Not through force, through structure, through the design of incentive pathways, covenant frameworks, and risk models that make certain outcomes feel natural and others feel impossible. A government seeks financing for an infrastructure program. The terms you help set will determine not just interest rates, but which domestic industries survive the debt service and which ones quietly atrophy. You know this. Everyone in the room knows this. No one says it, because saying it would require acknowledging a degree of influence that the system is designed to deny. You have become the infrastructure itself, not a player, a condition. The rule. The highest form of control is not directing outcomes. It is designing the environment in which others believe they are choosing freely, and in which every available choice leads to the same destination. Level 10. Invisible. You are 67. There is no Wikipedia entry, no profile in any publication, no panel appearance, no keynote, no photograph taken at a conference where your lanyard faced the camera. Your name appears on no term sheet, no cap table, no board resolution that was ever filed publicly. And yet, currency regimes have shifted along fault lines you helped draw. Capital has flowed through channels you helped engineer. Policy frameworks adopted by institutions across 4 continents carry structural assumptions you helped embed decades ago, assumptions that now feel like natural law because no one remembers they were designed. You are not wealthy in the way magazines describe wealth. You are wealthy in a way that does not require description. Your influence does not appear on any organizational chart because it does not flow through organizations. It flows through conditions. The quiet, invisible architecture of how decisions are framed before anyone realizes a decision is being made. This is the final level, and its defining feature is absence. No evidence, no signature, no credit. Only outcomes that, in retrospect, feel like they could not have gone any other way. The rule. At the highest level, there is no power to see. There is only a world that bends in a particular direction, and no visible hand doing the bending. The most powerful person in the system is the one the system does not know exists. Reset. 0. Somewhere far below, in a glass tower she spent 4 years dreaming of entering, a young woman sets her bag beneath a desk she does not own. She is 23. Her badge is temporary. Her coffee is free. She believes, with every cell of her well-educated, carefully indebted body, that the system rewards those who work the hardest and see the clearest. She will open her laptop. She will populate a model. She will stay late and arrive early and mistake proximity for progress. She will not notice, not yet, not for years, that the building she sits in is only the visible fraction of something far larger and far quieter. That the real decisions were made before she woke this morning, that the market she'll analyze by afternoon has already been authored in a room with no minutes and no name, in a conversation that lasted less than a minute, between voices she will never hear. The terminal blinks. The day begins. And somewhere above her, above the glass, above the city, above the visible architecture of money and title and rank, a phone rings once, is answered, and a single sentence is spoken that will quietly rearrange the world she is just now learning to describe. She won't feel it until Friday. she will never know why.